in Egypt until they become a tribe of some millions of people. That leads us to the issue of Moses. The cry of these millions of people who have now become slaves in Egypt over 400 years. And God brings Moses out of his own people, prepares him as a leader, and Moses leads the people of Israel out of Egypt through an extraordinary set of circumstances, through the Red Sea, across the Sinai Desert, where they had the encounter with the Ten Commandments and the burning mountain and so on, and off to their promised land. Now, Moses is not permitted to see the fulfillment of the promise made 400 years earlier to Abram, that his children would one day come and occupy this land, known at that time as the land of Canaan. But here is a very important point, and that is that while our Jewish brothers and sisters believe rightly that God gave them the land, they were not given the land without conditions. They were not given the land free of obligation. And one of the great warnings comes in Deuteronomy chapter 4, where just as they are about to enter into the land which they are currently fighting over today, God gives to Israel this warning. Pay attention. I'm teaching you the rules and regulations that God commanded me so that you may live by them in the land you are entering to take up ownership. Keep them, practice them. You'll become wise and understanding. When people hear and see what's going on, they'll say, "What a great nation. So wise, so understanding, we've never seen anything like it." Yes, what other great nation has gods that are intimate with them the way our God is with us, always ready to listen to us? And what other great nation has rules and regulations as good and fair as this revelation that I'm setting before you today? Now hold it there for just one moment. Moses, just as they are about to enter into their promised land, warns them that with the land comes very serious obligations. God's purpose for giving them this land, and now we're talking some 1500 years BC, was firstly that the nations who were currently occupying that land lived a disgraceful life. In particular, the thing that was most hateful to God, they burned their sons and their daughters in the fire as sacrifices to their pagan gods. You want to upset God, you mess with little children. Jesus will one day say, there's a lot of reasons for offences to come, but if you start messing with the lives of children, it would be better that a millstone was hanged around your neck and you were drowned in the depths of the sea. You mess with children, you are really touching something that matters profoundly to the heart of God. These nations had disqualified their right to exist because their worship practices were so degenerate. They were so destructive that God was prepared to see them removed. And all of us must recognize we do not live in an immoral universe. None of us has an inalienable right to exist. With life comes obligations. And it is possible for a person to so live that in God's sight you have cancelled your right to continue or to exist. And therefore, this warning comes to this nation who is about to occupy and take the land which will become known as Israel. Now, the warning goes on. So, stay alert. Don't for a minute forget the covenant which God, your God, made with you. And don't take up with any carved images, no forms of any kind. God, your God, issued clear commands on that. God, your God, is not to be trifled with. He's a consuming fire, a jealous God. When the time comes that you have children and grandchildren, put on years and start taking things for granted. If you then become corrupt and make carved images, no matter what their form, by doing what is sheer evil in God's eyes and provoking his anger, I can tell you right now, with heaven and earth as witnesses, that it will be all over for you. You'll be kicked off the land that you're about to cross over the Jordan to possess. Believe me, you'll have a very short stay there. You'll be ruined, completely ruined. God will scatter you far and wide. A few of you will survive here and there in the nations where God will drive you. There you can worship your homemade gods to your heart's content, your wonderful gods of wood and stone that can't see or hear or eat or smell. But even there, if you seek God, your God, you'll be able to find him if you're serious, looking for him with your whole heart and your whole soul. This is known as the Palestinian covenant. The responsibilities that come with the ownership of land. And following that, the people of Israel said, we're prepared to do that. We accept our responsibilities. And Joshua then led the conquest into the land. And over the coming years, it took some hundreds of years, but they eventually occupied all the land that had been promised to them. The high point was under King David and under King Solomon, about 1,000 years BC. At that time, Israel had become the show nation she was intended to be. Kings and queens travelled from all over the world to come to Israel to see whether the stories was true. And under King Solomon, Queen Bathsheba came to Israel, and her comment was, not a half of the stories have been told. This is a magnificent nation. It was Israel's finest hour. Jerusalem, where does Jerusalem fit? Well, Jerusalem, the very name Jerusalem, means the city of peace. Wouldn't that break your heart? This was God's plan. Israel, a nation who wrestles with God. And what's their capital city? Jerusalem, the city of peace. And the Bible says about Jesus Christ, he is a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek.